Welcome back. David Bell joins us, managing broker with RE/MAX Metro Eastside, our resident RE/MAX Hall of Famer, and the recipient of Seattle Magazine's 5-star Best in Client Satisfaction Award every year it's been offered. Welcome back, David.
Ben, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm just great. Isn't it a great day? The weather is, the heat wave is over. The people are not complaining anymore.
Only in Seattle.
Only in Seattle, I know.
It's too hot. It's too cold.
It rains too much, and I know.
It's amazing.
Hey, I like your analogy about home buying and weddings. And I think the best way to go on this thing is just elope.
Yeah, just buy a second home and rent here.
Just elope. Just forget about all the invitations. Forget about the flowers, the fonts, and just go to Las Vegas.
That's yeah. So, but and then you think about going to Las Vegas and that same thing. If people maybe go down just real quick decisions to go do that. Maybe you find somebody in Las Vegas, you have a few drinks, and you end up marrying them down there.
Yeah, you never know. You never know.
But that's kind of that much more a speculative purchase. It's like buying a house sight unseen.
But that's the way it used to be around here. From about 2002 to 2007, it was almost like buying a house sight unseen.
Yeah.
Because you had 20 minutes, 30 minutes to make up your mind sometimes. At least today, people have a day, in this market, or a couple days. So, but I like your analogy. It's interesting.
Well, so when you start looking at it, and you talked about the role of we talked about this, about the role of a real estate agent, because as when somebody's getting married, certainly there's a lot of people who play. There might be a pastor, there might be a rabbi, there's mother-in-laws and parents, and there's sisters, and there's bridesmaids, there's groomsmen. Where does a real estate agent play in this analogy?
We're a marriage counselor when it comes to buying a house. I think that's the best way to put it, because you go to your minister or your rabbi, and they sit you down and they have discussions with you about whatever you're going to do. And the same thing is true with real estate. You need to sit down and have discussions with somebody that knows what they're doing about the home buying process. It's not, in many ways, it's as complicated as getting married. And some people, like you said, some people go out there and they look at homes and they have a certain idea in their head. And unless they see that exact same, that exact thing, they don't find the home they want. And all of a sudden, time goes by, the home that was a good home for them is sold. And they finally realize, well, gee, that was a good home. And then let's go back and look at that. Well, I'm sorry, it's sold. So they really need to understand the whole process. And something you and I have talked about a lot before is sometimes you get a husband and a wife or two partners or whatever, and they have almost 180-degree differences in what they want in a house. And that's always fun. And again, that's marriage counseling.
It's funny you bring up the marriage counseling piece, because, you think about marriage when you go out. I remember we went to pre-marriage counseling.
What do they talk about?
Well, they ask you all the different attributes. It's, well, what are you looking for? What are you looking for, right? Does this person meet these needs? This. And of course, you're young and married, and you're getting married, and you're like, yeah, of course, everything's perfect, right? And, not to say that, but that's kind of the same role, I think, as you're talking about in real estate. You're trying to connect somebody. Well, what's important? Is it school districts? Is it the backyard? Is it the number of bedrooms? Is it, whatever it may be, floors, the millions of things that go into a house.
It could be all those things.
But there's millions of things that go into a person, right? There's millions of attributes, or, is she tall? Is she skinny? Is she cute? Is she whatever, right?
Does he have
Small
hair?
feet, hair?
Yeah.
Whatever is important to you, that is really that, and you get to pick. There's no right or wrong answer. You get to pick what's important to you in a relationship. You get to pick what's important to you in a house.
Well, but it's also a mutual picking, because who you pick has to pick you as well. And so here's the house. Here's this poor house sitting out there, and the two come in, and one picks it, and the other one doesn't pick it. And then they go to the next house, and the other one picks it this time, and the other one doesn't pick it.
It's a good thing houses don't have feelings.
Oh, they do. They do, yeah.
So when you talk about, you talk about the two people who are making a housing decision, it just does. They're not always wanting the same thing in a house.
No, they're not, and they don't always see, particularly first-time buyers. They see a house. They see a house that they see colors on the wall. They see tile. They see the floors, they see the yard, they see all this stuff. But what they don't see is they don't see the structure of the house. They don't necessarily see, what school, they don't know what school district it's in. They don't know the condition of the house. They don't know how it was built or what the bones are. They don't see a lot. I have some clients have actually two things I can talk about here that they told me, the other day. They have some friends. They have one set of friends that have been married for about 5 years. They've owned a house for 4 years, and now she's pregnant. And one of my clients asked them, well, what school are you going to send them to? And the two people looked at each other and said, we have no idea what the schools are like here, so we should probably find out.
Yeah, and get on a waiting list, because let me tell you, preschool waiting list.
Yeah.
I don't know why people don't open more. Anyways, go ahead.
So the point is that they went and bought a house not even understanding what the school districts were. So if they're going to go to private school, then it's really no big deal. They can just have their chauffeur drive them to private school. But if they're going to go to public school, it may not be the type of public school they want to really go to. So that's really, that's one of the important factors.
And if you don't have a chauffeur, how on earth are they going to get to private school?
I don't know. Well, the chauffeur becomes the father.
Oh, got it.
I was one of those chauffeurs.
Yeah.
And I had to park in
Did
just
you
the
rock
right
the black
spot.
hat?
I didn't. I was incognito. So.
We're here with David Bell, our resident RE/MAX Hall of Famer. David, so as you start to help people and counsel them to, I guess, compromise into choosing mutually agreeing on a house, what are some of the biggest roles you talk about the role of a school system. You talk about what are some of the biggest, I guess, pieces of the house that people do not agree on, and where's some of the bigger picture focus that they should be focusing on?
Well, I think the biggest picture on this thing is not the house to begin with. The biggest picture is to find somebody that knows how to guide them through the process. And what I mean by that is a good real estate agent. And not everybody's a good real estate agent.
I know. We just did a blog. There's 466,100 real estate agents out there. And you got to find one that works for you.
400 in the country?
In the United States.
In the United States. Okay. Yeah. All right. How many are here?
It was not in the U.S. Labor of Statistics.
Oh, okay. So, let me tell you another story that these folks told me. So then we have some other friends that, she said, we're so grateful for all the information, all the education you're giving us. It's so great because now we're really understanding what we're buying. Mm-hmm. And she said to me that some other friends had a real estate agent or have a real estate agent that they really love. And I said, why do they really love her? Well, they bought a condo and they got into closing, and they discovered in closing that the Homeowners Association was bankrupt. And the real estate agent was able to get them out of the deal by going to the lender, who apparently approved the CC&Rs, the resale cert, and got the loan denied. But if they'd been into closing by that time, if they hadn't removed their financing contingency, then they would have lost their earnest money. And it was like, how could you even get that far not knowing that the Homeowners Association was bankrupt? Because once you know how it works. Once you buy a condominium and you have a signed off purchase and sales agreement, the first thing you order is what's called a resale certificate. And there's a Homeowners Association typically that prepares the resale certificate. And typically you get it within 10 days. And I always get a copy of that resale certificate. And the first thing I do, I go to the financials. And I look at the financials. And if it's not a strong association, then I have some real serious questions. And if it's a bankrupt association, we walk away right now. Because they're just not going to be able to fix that. These people now we're talking about a $40,000 and $50,000 assessment to get the reserves back up to the point where they weren't underwater anymore.
It's expensive.
Well, it's hugely expensive, but the real estate agent that they worked with, that they loved, got them in that position.
But then they got him out.
how'd you
get him in the first place?
But how did you get into that position in the first place? They never read. I can't say this for a fact because I wasn't there, but it's kind of obvious to me. The
resale certificate.
No, the real estate agent never read the resale certificate, and that's something you just have to do. You have to look at that. Because folks don't understand that stuff sometimes unless you point it out. That's huge in condos.
How would you even know where to look? If you don't do this every single day.
Well, yeah, but there's agents that do it every single day that don't look, because if I don't see it and I don't smell it and I don't hear it, I don't have to say anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then if there's something bad in there, then my God, maybe they won't buy the place and I won't have a deal. And, that sounds terrible, but that's kind of the motivation around a lot of this stuff.
Sure, makes sense. David, we just have about a minute left before we have to go to break, but what are some other pieces of a homeowner association that that a buyer should be looking at?
Other than homeowners association,
or what other pieces are within? There's the
within a resale. Okay, within
finances. There's
going to be assessments if there's any assessments coming up. I think everybody out there, you've driven by buildings and you see buildings in bags. We call them bags. Buildings are in a bag, and if you own a condominium and it goes into a bag, you can't sell it because nobody wants to live in a bag. And you can't rent it because nobody wants to rent something that's in a bag. And you don't really want to live in it because you don't want to live in a bag. Mm-hmm. And then after it comes out of the bag a year later, because it takes a year, the values of the properties go way down. So you have to really look at the structural integrity of the building. Does it have water issues? Does it have these issues? And there's a lot of attorneys out there that go after a lot of condominiums to try to get this to happen. And there's a lot of condominiums that are built that are not good. So if you're in downtown Seattle, you want to buy a building that's a concrete and steel building. You don't have issues with that.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. That's really a huge one.
Well, David, it is like a marriage, and I guess when you have to start looking at each aspect of buying a house, there's certain things that you just don't think about at the first time around, and having somebody to guide you is a key. You got to have that. You really have to have that. Well, David, thanks so much for joining us. When we come back, again, something that is going on and a buyer's agent should help you be aware of is short sales and what that really means when you're buying it and who can short sell their house. We'll be right back after this break. You're listening to Brashenomics.